In episode 78, I piffle on the dangers of overpopulation. Much like the more favorable lake in the previous episode, the Earth was once a pristine planet filled with an overabundance of natural resources. But as the Earth is becoming more and more overcrowded, this is all changing. With the world population now soaring upwards past 7 billion people, the Earth is shrinking as we all huddle together, sharing less and less habitable space. You can debate the outcome, but there is no getting around the fact that at some point the Earth's resources will no longer be able to sustain life, and all life forms, especially mankind, will suffer as a result. In many places around the world, they already are. Our streams, rivers, and oceans are all in varying degrees of distress. Tons of pollutants are continually being released into the air we breathe, and if we do not change our behaviors, the consequences will continue to worsen for us. Some communities are already so overcrowded that poverty is the norm. Food supplies are dwindling, and many people the world over are either starving to death or are undernourished. The Amazon and the other rainforests are being depleted at an alarming rate, which will result in dreadful consequences to all classifications of life, including humans. As the Earth's resources continue to shrink, wars will be fought over water sources, food supplies, and other natural resources. As countries become overcrowded, citizens of one nation will begin spilling over the borders into other sovereign territories, causing conflicts to flare up that will lead to untold atrocities. The last thing the world needs right now are more babies being born into it, and yet the world's population is skyrocketing like it never has before in previous generations. As medical science advances and people are afforded longer lives, the world's population will continue to grow exponentially. It is laudable that some people are working towards curing diseases, and yet they may be unwittingly dooming mankind to even greater suffering in the future. If mankind does not learn to manage population growth, then we will all continue to suffer the consequences, which are likely only going to become more severe. At some point, either because of all-out, possibly nuclear war, or perhaps a worldwide plague or pandemic, a large percentage of the human population is likely to die off, thus giving the Earth's resources the needed time to replenish itself. Because of this catastrophe, perhaps those people who survive will learn a critical lesson and become better stewards of the Earth's resources in the future. Though based on the diversity of mankind and the fact that we are hardwired not to get along, this is highly doubtful. It is sad to say, but it is apparent that mankind is doomed to suffer in one way or another for however long he exists in this life, whether on this earth or another planet. There are already tons of debris floating out into space, and the moon is littered with trash after only a handful of visits by man. Everything that mankind touches, he is destined to spoil. Aside from the dangers of overpopulation, the world we are born into is fraught with peril. Why would anyone knowingly bring a new life into such a dangerous existence, where many of the hazards are outside of your control? The only thing a new life can be certain of when it is born into this world is that at some point this life will come to an end. What will transpire in between life and death is purely a matter of chance. It depends on many factors, starting with the family you were born into and how healthy you will be. Afterwards, a whole host of internal and external factors will determine how your life will turn out. Whether you believe in destiny or just plain luck, this will also have a significant impact on the quality of your life. Would you deliberately take your child to a place where his or her protection would be largely out of your control? A place where there is no guarantee that your child will be happy. A place where there is distinct possibility that your child will suffer unknown hardships and despair. A place where sicknesses and diseases abound, and where natural disasters and tragic accidents happen on a regular basis. a place where people cannot get along and murder and war are commonplace occurrences. If you cared about the well-being of your child, of course you would not choose to bring him or her into such a place. And yet couples will conceive babies into this world without the proper concern for their children's welfare. In fact, children are conceived by couples who are smokers, alcoholics, drug addicts, and who knowingly have severe genetic disorders. Even couples who may be living in the direst of circumstances themselves will still thoughtlessly conceive a child. Every single day, children are born to parents who are so impoverished that they cannot even afford to feed and clothe them properly. Children are conceived by couples in places that are ravaged by war. Children are conceived by couples who live in communities where warlords, gangs, and thugs terrorize the populations. Children are conceived by couples who live in slavery and are forced to toil under the oppression of their enslavers. Children are conceived by couples who live in communist, fascist, or totalitarian countries without basic human rights or freedoms. History is filled with numerous examples of the most appalling of circumstances, and yet couples will still conceive children. Why would anyone with even a modicum of common sense or forethought conceive a child under any of these circumstances? Even if your child is fortunate enough to live a very privileged lifestyle, unless they are oblivious or apathetic to the suffering of others, it would have to weigh heavily on their psyches. Why would you want to conceive a new life into a world where it is a certainty that your child will either suffer great anguish, be oblivious or insensitive to the suffering of others, or worse, become the cause of another person's suffering? Thank you for listening. I hope you will join me in my next video.